Sange chedang tsoki chonam la chanchu pardo dani kyakun Dage jinso gibe chonam gi Dola penjira sange ndokor Sange chedang tsoki chonam la chanchu pardo dani kyakun Dage jinso gibe chonam gi Dola penjira sange ndokor Sange chedang tsoki chonam la chancho pardo dani kyakun Dage jinso gibe chonam ki Dola penjire sange ndobara sho Simchen tamche dewa dewe gyutang dembara kyuchi Simchen tamche lunga dang lunga ki gyutang tawa Simchen tamche lunga mebe dewa dang mindawa Simchen tamche nyering chadang nidang chak Panyam la nepara gyuruchi Simchen tamche dewa dewe gyudang dembara gyuchi Simchen tamche lunga lunga ge gyudang chawara gyuchi Simchen tam lunga mebe dewa dang mindawara gyuchi Simchen tam nyering chadang nidang chawe Panyam la nepara gyuruchi Simchen tamche dewa dang dewe gyudang dembara Simchen tamche dunga dang dunga ge gyudang chawara Simchen tamche dunga mepe dewa dang mindawa Simchen tamche nyirin chawan nidang chak Dang nyamla nepara gyurchi Simchen tamche dewa dang dewe gyudang dembara Simchen tamche dunga dang dunga ge gyudang chawara gyuchi Simchen mebe dewa dang mindawa Simchen tam nyere chagang nidang nyamla neba gyuje sajbe oje juje me do re ro ni ji nye de gen ba Sange jendo nedembo ai dokenanda jin la chebarjo idam gururana mendala kanya atayami.
Until enlightenment, I go for refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the accumulation of the practices of giving and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. Until enlightenment, I go for refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the accumulation of the practices of giving and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. Until enlightenment, I go for refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the accumulation of the practices of giving and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. May all sentient beings be endowed with happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings never be separated from joyful bliss. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free of bias, attachment, and anger. May all sentient beings be endowed with happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings never be separated from joyful bliss. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free of bias, attachment, and anger. May all sentient beings be endowed with happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings never be separated from joyful bliss. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free of bias, attachment, and anger. This ground, spread with incense, adorned with strewn flowers, Mount Meru, the 4 continents, the sun and the moon, I imagine as a Buddha land, and by offering it to you, may all living beings enjoy this pure land. Thus, meeting the teaching of the peerless teacher is due to the spiritual mentor's kindness. I dedicate this virtue for all living beings to be cared for by excellent spiritual friends. Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Nayata Yami.
Konge doje nizun wa tawa tamje pambe chere tambe chine tamje be kodam te la cha za lo. Ya ta. Ta. Kasho uma tanjuril tawa. Page mingzam tanyedu yobad mingzamji razamji tobe pa jazamji mado yo mare zet sunyade be misbatal tawenal tawar tadu chagi res roha tiendi galate ta kazam page jime tamji sunala sultanate silbo haku res.
So now when it comes to the Prasangika Madhyamaka, the highest middle way view, then what they assert is that except for a conventional existence, with things being ascribed names and conventions to them, that there's no other real existence to these things, to phenomena. And this is the final and the ultimate. This is the highest view. And this quote from, we can understand this, where it's said and stated very well in this quote from Jigme Damche. Anidi Laktong Chemo. De la tani de yapar.
What is on?
And so here,
Ani Isotape, Ani Doteto, Captain Chesate, Muni, Niesa the Tras Rigita, take it chadiore.
And it really hit these quotes that were recently spoken about and posted, really hit the mark when it comes to explaining and elucidating how phenomena exist by means of having conventions attributed to them. So both the quote by Jigme Damche and the sutra quotes that were given really hit the mark to elucidate this very point.
유능원이 여바지 투투도 영연소 유능원이 깨나마테베 영연소 정말 좀 남기도 하세 왔다 띠나사데 다 너르데 데 띠나사데라 다 유능원이였나 깨나마테바 요와지 차고래 마탄줄래 깨나마테바 애니베 즉 이젠라마 라말레바지 용과 코랑원이 용과지 용고래 딜라 다 디 왕기 땅 아주 즉 가르소르 때 렘베 나와세 데낭즈나 렘베 나와 then to ginawa till tindi yungu to nga zu nang zul de la then bin nawa den de yong de la ta nga zu kang yul ngone ye gyan da ta ka chakpo de ji indo khabo pe ti ma da ti indi la ti ne chasem kya sa dangsem kya de de guni nang zul te ti wang gi yong go wa wacha nang zul te 대왕이 다 요네 아니 잡아지기 잡에온 가서래 컨트롤러 소바께 미거와께 미거 셈디께 병게 랭가 파사 랭게 병게 먼저 동al 댕긴 거 알아 어따티 미오야 탑시다 아니 땡진대원 중앙 땡델시야데 다 시부지 고아침벌에서 숨고도 간지 땡주 많이 비 총가여 봐 많이 이제 간지 똥바 많이 총가여 봐 많이 넣어서 숨고도 어따 때 빼면서 가서 삼당 거래
디식제 양결책
간지 땡주 많이 비 총가여 봐 많이 넣어 간지 똥바 많이 비 총가여 봐 많이 넣어 최 간대지나 때는 좀 마도 때는 먼저 최지쟁이요 말이스 아니 라진기 쪽에 똥아 최 탐제 라진기 쪽에 똥아지래 마도 랑원이 똥아래 마도 뜸 랑원이 쪽에 마동아지 dember 마동아지 땡서니 요 말을 거와 다때 좀 가서 양양도 삼당 거로 가서 레당보 때 로치야 가보래 다 녀몽 가서 누가 누구면아 타와 dim라 삼루지 마코나 누가 방에 탑시진다 요 말다
So the things that appear to us in a way that they are actually just what they appear to be, just like that they are independently arisen and actually what they appear to be all by themselves. But actually, that's not really the case. And that understanding of the things that we perceive and experience is mistaken. That is a mistaken understanding. Because if it were the case that things in and of themselves are exactly what they appear to be, it would mean that they would not need to rely on any other factors, that there would be no interdependent play. They would rely on nothing else, for they are real and they are true in and of themselves and appearing like that. But that's not the case. Things appear like they, from their own side, independently exist, that they are exactly just what they look like to us. And they look like true appearances. That's the way they appear. They really appear in a way that they are true and actual and just like that. And because of that fact that we have this impression, we then have a relationship to those objects where we can become attracted and very attached to them, thinking that they are just like that. Or rather, we can be averse or repelled or repulsed by these things. In other words, not like them, because we think that they are just like that, just like the way they appear. Because we take them to be just like that, the way they appear, we're attracted toward them, or we become angry about them. We're angered or repulsed. We have negative states of mind and commit non-virtue. This non-virtue then leads to further suffering. So what is it that we need to do to unravel this, to break this cycle? It is to understand that there is no true independent existence to those things that appear to us. They appear, but they're not like that. They are not naturally, independently, just like that arisen phenomena. They're false, they're deceptive. And as it said, that except for things arising out of interdependent nature, reliant upon other things, they're empty of that. And phenomena, all phenomena are not other than that. They all rely on interdependence. And therefore they're not true. They're deceptive phenomena. And so this may be hard for a beginner, perhaps for a beginner to understand right away. And yet that's the very thing that we need to understand if we don't want suffering. Because unless we understand the real nature of appearances and phenomena and things that we experience, then we will not be able to break the cycle of our suffering.
재산 로드 야수 주빈 더 나라 니송도 땡진 대원 중앙 땡งู니 김에 저송도 땡진 대원 중화 켈렌 진젤라งู니 주바치 땡 사완이니요 말스งู니 주세도 유릉원이요 봐 수투디요 봐딱 계산 하게 따바 탄송의 좀나งู니 좀나 유릉원이 주고레스 수투도 주고레스 헬나 마트버 주고레스 뭐 주두이나 주 요았다 가르사 지메 담치기 따바타송 그 렘버 두세 망부지 자도와 다 때서 셰고래 때서 셰나 때니 때니 중세들가라 유흥면다 유니메 삼삼지 예용들라 아니 나랑서다 윤동아서 소 배낭 나선진 둘라 빼가 버려 라틀데 잠깐 시기 말데 둘라 가버려 둘지 통인다 때다 서네 유크랑 둘문에 수습도 영엔지 가서 남기도 아니 때를 차심기 그러와 아니 녀마토데 가서나 미서버지 깨르 동알 망부지 레기로와 어다 유르원이 매 코랑원이 매디 원에 직컴분임 다음에 배 때네 망부지 저샤교지에서 삼로 코르용도 갈라 때는 중앙에 하고 온다 대용도 갈라 유르원이 매바데 때 착선달라 시부지 너고 배 쇼총으로도 대가서 녀의 삼로 당나 녀의 주고도 자장 가 텐델 되게 라 삼타용도 갈라 텐텐 유르원이 주변 나와당 유릉 랑은 주변 나와 되겠다 텐텐 너구아래 무슈 지리고 오네 대 삼당 왔던 넨텐 너구아래
넨텐
말한 좀배 삼로마다는 마도 삼당당나 디슈충으로 진짜 맞아 줄라는 미게 쳐대 용주고 와래 동알 쳐대 용주고 와래 딜 따와 라지메벨 따와 민경 따여 좀길 따와데 라 팀부지 다 오늘 과 야부지께는 때리간 뱅기로와 팀부지 되네 삼로 거리나 때 또스 차 뱅기도와 된디가나 오늘 양양도 삼당과도 뺀 미시부 깨침버리 겨울은 부치디 땡들 걸라 빼 우미 민경 따여 좀 땡들 에네 디다 원바지네 로 뚝중두고도 송도
로카출라
원로 줍든 접게네 삼다인스
건닥 아니 콩로카츠
줍든 접게네 원로 줍든 다 우멜 타왈라 삼다인스 다 단달 때 집주 가는 로드가라 다 만다시 형도 송도 하나도 다 데인디가라 라마 텔랭기 젤준디 난구마라 라마 텔랭기 테니 송디가라 ngaranzo tang semgi ranjing Jimmy Male by Indugala, Yorm is some Koreana, Maza Kalakale Shuji Ganat in the Jinji, Davon Malena, Tanyabu la Legroa, Lungal Chungura. This some tango, the pet chamber.
And therefore, that is why it is said in the sutras, the words of the Buddha himself has said that when something is said to be dependently arisen, that speaks to it having no true essence of what it appears to be, the appearance aspect. And what that means is that these objects that we see, they are not real. They are not really what they appear to be. They are not just what they look like, meaning there is a deeper reality. For if it were to be real, a real object, it would need to withstand being of several factors. And earlier, again, Jigme Damche in a quote listed all of those different factors that would underline its being a real object, such as authentic and exactly like it appears to be, and not reliant on other factors and so forth. And you could go back and look at these many things that were listed. And actually, these are all very, very important things to know. This list that was given of what would allow for something to be real. And you should really know this list, should really understand those factors. But actually, those things that we see, those appearances and those objects, those different phenomena, there is no real truth to them. There is no real life or being or existence to them. Even though that is the case, we like to think that they exist. We enjoy the things that we enjoy. Those things that we like to think of them as existent. But then again, you know, those things that we don't like and we feel are truly existent, we have no patience for them. We cannot bear them, and they cause us a lot of suffering. So when you go back to that list in that quote of these different requisites to make something be real and true, you can apply this list of requisites and see that all of those things that we observe don't fit. And so therefore, they are interdependently arisen. They're not really in and of themselves what they appear to be. And this knowledge, this understanding, when it dawns on us, means that the mind that has a relationship with those things, that attaches to them or feels averse to them, this begins to reduce, this begins to decrease. And this is because we now know the dependent relationship. And so it's really important that as we go about constantly, actually, as we go about our daily activities and where things are in our field of visual dimension and so forth, experiential dimension, that we should be examining them to see if there is any truth to them being exactly what they appear to be. Because unless we do this, all we will be doing is reinforcing the notion that things are truly just like that. And therefore we are reifying this notion that things are true and real and exactly like that. And this notion, again, brings us to mindsets and emotions where we act out in very non-virtuous ways that then we bring suffering upon ourselves. And so when we think about something, a phenomena being an interdependent phenomena, we understand that it has been a series, like a chain reaction of interdependent situations and composites and so on that have brought these into being. There's no true reality to them in and of themselves. And this is really the only method, the only strategy or method that we have to break this reinforcement or reifying our notion and our interacting in the world in the way that we have been, as this being a true and actual reality of things. And so interdependence really breaks this all down. And His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, also has said that actually over the past, he has been contemplating this very thing, using this strategy for the last 17, 18 years, examining phenomena, examining how they have been merely imputed, and we have assigned conventions to them. We have designated meaning upon things that they do not hold themselves. We designate that meaning. And so if His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, has been thinking about this and contemplating this and working with this view, it's also something, again, that we can take up to break down our former notions. And actually, this is a very important step, because what this does is understanding the actual nature of things rather than the apparent nature of things, and this understanding of interdependence and designation and so forth just gets us closer to what His Holiness and the other great lamas say is mind's nature, this pure, stainless mind's nature. We will come closer and closer to this when we apply our own contemplation of interdependence.
백 내가 전부 차열했으러와. 군전 전에 좀 더 자외 나라. 뱀좀 되버래. 랑의 민경 민세 파다라스 숨도. 우마 통교에 따와들 랑의 매경스 유릉wen의 매나양 민당세 파다 점지레스. 타니 딱그선 타니 두둑세들 숨이야 기주 숨 참고하라. 어다 때리다. 타니 점지 마도 파민 또빔 파 민다데 또베 파 자 점지 마도 유릉wen이 요마를 라브레. 덴바레 어다 티소 야니안도 삼당과도 뺏게 침보레.
아니 수승 파렐라
군전 장에제 봐.
장제 봐.
네 좀더 자외 치데 구르고. 원다티니. 땡인지 뭐래.
And the Kunken Zhangjepa, the great omniscient Zhangjepa, has also said that phenomena there's no true existence to phenomena outside of the fact that we apply names and labels, concepts and meanings to them. And so actually, if we look, it is exactly like that. We contrive and apply meaning, names, understanding, concepts upon things. That doesn't really exist from the side of the object. That's something that is applied and ascribed by us. And actually, There is no true existence of any of that in outer objects. And Geshe-la said he will also, that's a really, so this is a very, very important quote, because again, as Geshe-la just said, we're speaking about the Prasangika Madhyamaka, the middle way, highest view. This is an extremely significant, meaningful point. And he said this is one of, in the future, he will send out this quote so that we can get it posted and we can keep it and really know this quote.
Ate yulngweni tutse te rangweni tutse zembar tutse teji pe taba thansung tutse te so pe salbo ji soso lola nge baji chene nge pordo samtang gu gore ani minchang thai thangi chamgi yo thade thangi thamodo tos khabo arta thangi thamodo pe khabo jermoche ani pe ta thangi thamo yani yulngweni ke gudus yani mida chamgi ke gudus yulngweni ke wada pe ribe ke gire ribe tuk mare ani pe ribe ke ngudu te minchang mida chamgi sikeji te la pe emegi ribe emi tel ma do samdang sa mindus ina dandata samda khor khabondu de lo pe samte chos tangudu zer sungdo lo te chos tambar chao zer sungdo 인디가라 ngazo samlo yani yando tangwa ngazo 가진 삼당거래 ngazo lungan도 그거 말와 대wan도 그거와 lungal기 유도 까고 거라 까라 lungal기 유 까체데 따페 라지메 빌타와 민찬 타요 좀 길타와데 마시나 이 개두메 인자 따띠 쉐고야 데띠 하고 베네 전부 차디오래.
And so what really makes this such a really profound point, we can look at that now. We can look at these appearing objects, the trueness, the true. Are they true objects? Are they real objects? Are they actual objects? Are they authentically just what they appear to be objects? So all of this list, true, real, actual, authentic, intrinsically existent. And then on a subtler side, what part goes into it where we have labeled them such? Applied some kind of a conventional meaning to them. That actually looking into that part of it, that's a little more subtle to examine, to scrutinize. The side of the subjective labeling and the subjective meaning and definition and conventional usage and so forth that one applies to it. This is a little harder to understand. And yet, as Jetsun Kapa said, it is so important that we begin to examine it, because actually this very, very subtle, difficult to understand aspect of any true existence or accomplishment, as it said in Buddhism, something being truly accomplished or existence, it comes from the subjective side applying it to the object. And that is very, very hard to understand. And yet, Jetsun Kapa said, the only way for us to unravel it and understand this subtle point is through our own awareness, through our own intelligence, through our own scrutiny. That's what we must decipher it through our own awareness analysis to unravel it all. And so this meaning, it is really through the mind, through our application of our intelligence and analysis that we will unravel it. And therefore, it's so important that we really always think about this, that our mind, the wheels are always turning, examining the truth of our reality. So we must always think about it, because we don't want suffering, right? We don't want suffering, right? And we all want to be happy and comfortable, and right? We all really want that. And so if that's the case, if we don't want to be suffering, then we need to eliminate that which causes us to suffer. And so the way, unless we examine how things do not possess any self-nature, and how the existence that they do hold has come from our subjective side of naming them, labeling things, and ascribing meanings and usage to them. So unless we do that, we won't cut this cause of suffering. And that's why this is all a very, very important point.
어떤 된디가라 개 전부 차라 다 우마 등교를 다 왔지기래 다 라지 다 라지니 맨에 매고 우미도 왔다 우마 등교로라 당연히 전주 요번 저 두도 당연히 옆에 요거 저거도 다들 등교 두모만 배 다와지 차대요 다배 하고 해도 빼게 전부래.
And so this view of the middle way, the highest school of the middle way, is really incredibly significant. When they say in this Madhyamaka view that things do not hold any self-nature, they don't hold any intrinsic existence. While they say things are not intrinsically existent, they don't say that things don't exist at all. They assert that things do exist, but they only exist by way of convention. And so this is really the very, very special and extraordinary view of the middle way, that although things are not intrinsically existent, they are existent by means of convention.
And
so Geshe-la is asking, so have you thought well about this in these last weeks? Have you been contemplating this and thinking about this? Have you applied and integrated this?
Does he want us to speak? Oh, okay. I've been struggling with finding something to do on the cushion, a practice I can do. And I was wondering if Geshe-la could speak to that.
In terms of applying this view?
Yes.
Ani pena nganso di karishugore pena nganso jeto layang ani jeto layang ani keyo mare yena yang densala dene pena gom gyap du di tawa kandres jargore na gom gyap bedu yena yang jeto la ani dene kayo mare yang ani gomgya rang pekapsu tawa kandras jagore
tawa ngunita jipachikan rawada nyamja kabla ta fungi ngune tondegen nyamja ba tendijila fungi ngusumdo tondegen jina nyamja kabla tongsang khorang pe tongsang jumado ke yu 최진다 균에 난거 말에 동상 크랑지래 동상 동상 남칼다고 빼 동바지 라진기 쪽에 동배 동바 남칼다고지 동상지마도 레고요 말에 다디 냠자라테 시라 곰바슈 춤보 예데가라 자 제톱라 라용도가라 곰 갸네 제톱레야 라용도가라 다 곰트롤러 왔다 다른도나 곰트롤 연데가라 니페 나라 라지메 봐 된통 유말타부터 딜 나와들 레거래 나는 소소리지다 용해요 말때 곰갱인 데서라 겨울 무지 가면 예 바기 밤베지라 배 곰도 시간에 지구된 에는 모던 로 통도가라 아 등원이 나 삼삼지 롤 차송 송도 오 텔레고르 다 동상게 배 트라이온도가라 아니 나나라지 메바 통도 통고를 모던 로 통고를 간가도 때 율문이 매 서서 삼로 슈춤벌레 고래 텔라 제농 유마타부 세레 제토블라 냠nen 동동 유마타부 냠nen 제야동 냠자간라 동상 코랑마도 잘해요 말해
Olaso.
어떻게 해버려요
So we make a distinction here in bringing this into our practice by looking at the activities of during formal meditation or time on the cushion, and then post meditation. And when we're in formal meditation, time on our cushion, then this should really be a completely equanimous state. One should look to rest in like an openness of the sky, like an open expanse of the sky, with great equanimity, very equanimous state. And that is how you bring the view into your time on the cushion. And then when in post meditation, then as soon as we actually get up from our time in meditative equipoise, then appearances will again appear to us. And what we look to do is bring those appearances and understanding like a meditation on those appearances as being illusion-like, like a mirage, having no true existence to them. It's kind of, and actually to all of us, who meditate, we can have an experience of that very, like that sky-like meditation. And as soon as we get up, appearances will appear, whoever we are. Even His Holiness the Dalai Lama speaks about a particular situation. He was in Bombay and he was meditating, and so spent some time in meditative equipoise, and after meditating then needed to go somewhere, and was going somewhere in the car and looking all around, and soon cars were appearing. He saw cars on the street and he thought, oh, it really looks like there are real cars. And that's the time when you bring, so even for the Dalai Lama, appearances will appear again. And then how we work with them in post meditation is to look at them like they are not real. They are mirages. And that's the way we work with both meditation and post meditation.
세상 염자가로 동상자 워르디가 가자 된주 카페 동바를 모두 장면기 동바 말해 가자 된버투바 까sam지 동상지래 거래 된주 카페 동상처를 거래 세상 가자 된주 띵을 가자 된주 카니 답에 취진다 그게 핑겨 말해 그 딘더에 아니 동상대 된주 까sam기 동상래 장면기 동바 말해 어떻게 다 다වෙ는 타셔듯이 차디어라 냠자급들 차야 돼. 아니 말한 저 저르무승도 양 말라 가담 베기 시지게. 콘담베 제바체네. 답에 삼루단데 넘버 2도 민동이 좀부 넘버 2도 민도 삼루단 하장 슈 전부 됐대 코리온데 갈라 가르지는 나랑 연하선데 gond와 가담 베기 시디게. ene dus je konda nusun jido wata tenigi samtang teju chare yore wata te indugala ngone tede porta ta samno mambo matana ta lelaba chare jita mare.
And so at the time of meditation, we're sitting in a state where the object of negation, that which is to be negated, has subsided. It is not arising for us. So meaning the object of negation, meaning that the true existence of things has subsided during meditation. And that the point that it is subsided and broken off during meditation doesn't help, doesn't kind of flow into the post-meditation times necessarily. So that's when we actually directly apply our understanding of the view. All that we have learned and all that we know about the view comes into play post-meditation. That's when we really need to apply it, when appearances again are appearing. So His Holiness the Dalai Lama, for example, he's, says, oh, I'm a Kandampa Geshe, and I, have, need to think. Even I, think about, is it existent or is it not existent? And even I, and he can, touch himself and feel, his robes, and really apply it at, a real, like practical point when it really comes to our feeling like things are real and solid. And if we think about it, we can reify our realness and solidness very well if we think about it. And so we don't want to reify existence of things. And so in post-meditation, we should not think about that a lot and really reinforce those thoughts, but apply the view.
Can I make a comment? I've noticed in my practice that sometimes I've been able to remember the view, and oftentimes it's a negative emotion that will remind me. So I've gotten caught up in reifying, I guess, and then I notice I'm having an emotion, and then sometimes I'm able to remember the view, and then the emotion goes away. I mean, it's sort of like, oh, okay, that's right. This is, just a flow of interdependent origination, and there's nothing to be upset about here, or it's not of any benefit. Is that, am I really, I guess the question is, am I really in the view then, or am I just using cognitive methods to change my reaction to things? Yeah.
Ani pelcher dire, ani pena ani di tawa ngangne, ani daya dang tawa gi korla samlo tangya gi kebar gi korla pelcher dire, pena lara gi nyam la o samsam pena nyam ani kiena pena long na o tawa drena ani o di nga ngone long na ani pangi yomare di ngone tendro re di ngone dembadrup yomare tawa drena dene nyamnyong di ani drogere ani yena yang di ngone gi tawa jaria yamana di namtok nangshin ani de chikre pena di tawa di drenya dang tawa ngang ne gi daya di ngone namtok rebe yamana ani pentok yana
pentoda yorwal maranzo lunlaya de tampo tan ngazo yulnguni mebade samshura khorgo amarwa najin yulnguni dembarmatu yulnguni tubade khorgo amarwa yulnguni tuba mebade chima jijinji samlo khorina tini tendegi nyumontu kyayo mare So ngazo pe nyumman che ngazo pumpul teni kegdo. Dendi yarum bo zashi tijen nala. Sawa sheram nala. Pumin pumpu lejemet tela pumpu terdemet. Tejin shaba pundemen tejin shaba kanji inzerde. Te yang yang do samdang de yarum bo samdang ge zo kanangdo. Eni ti gyurne. Tejin shaba malavje. Pumin pumpu lejemet tela pumpu terdemet. 다 ngaran sorijina jimbasonam punlemi jimbasonam kanji inzede 다 풍부를 테네 따바 잠지를 마도 풍부 그나오니 jimbasonam 좀 되긴지 요마라 어다도 삼다내가 아니 델레간다 테니지드간에 삼다 때 풍부도 율군에 마주바지 소소 내방내바지 주나 다 점바 미 가르람나 다 맞아 셈라 펜데 대점 너밖에 두야이 팔질 매차고 왔다 디다 펜도 이제 깨탄 봐요래 펜도 매나 뉴 라지메 빌 타와데기 뉴몰 너투 마르와 그 너기요 인자 티무시 삼로 코나 뉴모 미켈 펭기도 우세데 되게 주야데 때리 텐덴 용그리 말한주 디 돌아 삼탄거 말와 삼탄나 라트그리티 더룬테 간라베 님부치 삼탄네 텔리강 애니베 양양도 삼탄다 텐덴 페도 용그리
So I'm looking for an exact quote that Geshe-la just quoted in answering. Oh, lasso. Yeah. Year, Geshe-la. Ta-year. So absolutely, you know, the way that you are applying, remembering the view is helping and is beneficial because it brings down whatever your emotional state, you know, whatever the negative state of mind is at the time. Let's say it's anger. It brings down the anger. It cuts the anger. And so it's because we at first like aren't abiding within the view. If we were already abiding in the view that there is no true existence to the outer objects, then we wouldn't get angry in the beginning. If we were abiding in that view, then we wouldn't have gotten angry or upset or desirous or whatever it really is. If we had already the understanding or were in the mindset that these outer things were not really true, we wouldn't have been angry in the first place. But we do, because we don't constantly hold that view. We get emotional. And actually, you know, just like His Holiness, you know, was mentioning, you know, we feel the afflictive emotions. We can actually, you know, physically have a visceral feeling when we become upset because, you know, we have even the feeling of truth in the aggregates, you know, that we really associate strongly even with our body. And that's why in, in the root verses or fundamental verses of the Middle Way, there is a verse. And the verse says, he's not the aggregates. He's not other than the aggregates. The aggregates are not in him. He is not in them. The Tathagata does not possess the aggregates. What is the Tathagata? And so Geshe-la said that, you know, we can apply this very same contemplation to kind of, to counter our association so strongly, not only with the outer objects, but with our own aggregates by applying our own name to this verse. So for example, Geshe-la said, for example, Jimpa Sonam is not the aggregates. He is not other than the aggregates. The aggregates are not in him, he is not in them. That Jinpa Sonam does not possess the aggregates. What is or who is Jinpa Sonam? And so we ourselves can, apply that. And actually, once we have ascertained that subjectively and objectively, there's no real, true, intrinsic existence. Once we have ascertained that, once we have a direct ascertainment of that, then we can no longer be mentally affected. So if we see that there is no true existence in outer objects, we won't get upset about anything anymore, because we'll understand that things have no nature and therefore they cannot harm us.
겨울무지디 시 타만니다 겨울무지랑 천주군한 게 천주도 규르니 아니 samdana 시우스는 팽부도서 겨울무지송도 겨울무지 춘춘 갈라 센들라 라모tundu 주거라 부구 갈라 라모tundu 아니 겸거무지 라모tundu 아니 풍민 풍포 레제메 텔라 풍포 테르데메 라모tundu 풍데메 나모tundu 까지 인저 samdana 시우스 팽기도스 당 뭐에 samdana 지마섬 주거라 다스즈 로라이나 로라주 라인 주데 도서 samdang래 nem버 투비고네 율 수도도 투비고네 아니 차차 대신 샤바요 말에 차 살고버라니요 말에 풍포요 말에 민캬 타요섬 게 강가요래 민캬 타요섬 수수 에니베 디제나 상게게 디여와 뭐다 뜻이고 대인들가 단다 띠 samdang이나 풍포를 미베 렘버지베 딘진들 시부진 너그러 단한가서 풍부배 수투투여가데 시부지 삼나 텔라 갑지수나 차거래 아니 미지기 찔라나 렘서 룽랑거라 나태 유롱 풍부 거랑 원은 두베지 유니민도 산다 삼로케이나 미 가르라나라 넌 캐르징인 소리 작도
라
미 가르라나라 딱 케브라민도 삼로지 고르고라 어쨌든 벤도여다 대 삼당 거래 대 야니양도 삼당 거래 수수 민주대 저게 대배 티디 로즘 아니 저게 수수 민주대 아니베 두시 카르마가 투 삼당다 로 다와찬이 땡땡 벤도용 거래.
So when His Holiness the Dalai Lama was young, then even he learned from his teachers, from his Lama, from his tutors, who would recite this and interject their name into the following lines. And His Holiness the Dalai Lama learned to do this by, in these last two lines, interjecting Lama Tukdrun.
라모tundu
Tundrup.
코난 부춘중 갑게 챈데
Gyalwa Rinpoche.
여러분이 부춘중 갑라 민들라 라모tundu 블라고야.
Because when His Holiness the Dalai Lama was a young boy, actually he was called Lama Tundrup. And so he learned from his teacher when saying this. So when His Holiness was a young boy, he would say, I am not the aggregates, I'm not other than the aggregates are not in me, I am not in them. The Tathagata, Lama Tundrup do not possess the aggregates, who is Lama Tundrup. And so he would investigate in this way, searching, where is the true existence? Where is the true existence of this individual? Are they in the aggregates? Can I find them in the aggregates? Or am I simply named something? And that's when we come to the point, that's what we're coming down to seek this individual. Is the individual found in these aggregates? And we find actually what we can learn from this experience is that our clinging to a true substantial reality is what really harms us, to our holding to a true reality in things. Because once we understand that our aggregates are not us, it's because we attribute our aggregates to be us that we feel pain. that's upon this basis that we have anger. This is the very basis of why we get angry, because we attribute an actual individual to this aggregate body. But once we realize that there's no true real existence of this one called, and Geshe-la said, insert your own name. He said Jimpa Sonam, but we could say at this point it was Lama Tundrup, or it could be Laura or Diane. Yeah, insert your own name, and insert your own name, investigating for that true existence. And actually what you'll find is that once you realize there is no true existence to am I in the aggregates, are they in me, one finds that they can't really zero in on anyone whatsoever. And therefore the other person or this objective situation has no power to cause you pain or difficulty in your mind. And so one should actually insert their own name in this quote and use it as a meditation, use it as a reflection. And for example, say it several times and meditate on this for 5 minutes a day. And you'll find that in the course of a year, a lot of transformation can happen.
Diane, sorry.
Yes.
I thought you were done. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I was just only going to add that, again, this is another quote that is online and in Slack. And however, any of these that you don't have and you would like, feel free to email me and I'll email them to you.
So I want to offer a clarification from what I heard another teacher say before, and then I would like Geshe-la to either edify it or reject it. That so our negative emotions can only arise dependent upon the thing that we negate, meaning the gotcha. So our negative emotions are only arising because of this thing that we should negate, but we don't negate it, and that's why there's negative emotions. So as we go through the process of negation, very much like what Laura was saying, the negative emotions diminish because the gotcha is also, our view of it is also diminishing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think did Geshe-la already say that?
Yeah, but kind of, but
yes. Okay, so tell me your exact question again.
Is our negative emotion arising because of the gotcha? And as we analyze the thing that we negate and negate it, as we negate it, our own negative emotions reduce, and so does our grasping that that thing somehow is real.
Okay, so do our negative emotions arise based on the gotcha? Is that what you said?
Yeah. Yeah.
For example?
Well, if you think that the guy that walks in the room and is yelling at me and I get mad back at him, I'm grasping to the thing being real. The guy yelling at me being real.
Yeah.
Or, whatever.
Di Geshe-la, di kiranki ngoma ani sumpatsar nangshin ani pena gakcha gurpegi cha rale ne nato gakcha pena kongi pena mi shandak ki sik siksup one tingone midi gakshare sik yang gakshare gakcha gurpegi cha la nyamong ani kegi yogere
matta
pena dendrup
gacha la urbe benzin ro ngazo zembar to be marde ngazo zembar zingi orba zembar zimbate mari pala goro tela mari pala gore nang pe chene nang mari ba ripin galda ta mari ba tere te nyomong tsawa chegen tere
Oh, lasso.
gacha khora yo marang gacha dembar maru bara gacha na dembar maza dembar tu ripe khe barwa hogi ta dembar zimba de yorwa dembar tuba mena dembar zimba de yorwa dembar zimba de shebarwa denzin sheba chinji lojire
Yeah.
oh chesa gacha na denzin ila khebran che gore gacha sne yulung dembar tuba ten chawa ni yo mare
Yeah.
te ripe khe bare ripe khe na maybe khap lab gor ta ripe khe na maybe khap lam ge gacha li yeme ni ga yo la re tik ripe gacha ina maybe khap ta me gin yo mare khora ina denzin di yor de wangi ti en be wangi ta na ken che de denzin ti ken chi gor gacha rang ta mare te.
So when we say, so gakja, so is, just for, that's the specific term that I think you probably said that in English, the Tibetan word in like English, gakja. What that means is object of negation. And so what Mark was asking, are the afflictive emotions arising on an object actually that is to be negated, meaning the person that walks into the room and says something nasty, etc. And so Geshe-la said that the way that we should understand this is not through this object to be negated or this gakcha so a gakcha is something that doesn't exist, something that's existence is negated. But actually what does exist for us or what we're having is a fixation to true reality. And so if we take exactly what you said, Mark, your question, and change instead of gakcha and put clinging to true existence of reality, then exactly right. It is what gets us involved and engaged in a way that we become furious, or we become so desirous, burning with desire, that what it is our fixation to a true reality in those things. And that is based in ignorance or unknowing, unconsciousness. It is that actually that is what causes the emotional upset. And so that's
and you can use that emotional upset as a signal that you have lost the view.
Beautiful.
Ani dene pena nyamnyong ani shukchampo ani kena dene lorgi triwadire nyamnyong shukchampo yerpe kapsu dene tawa ani lakpe takrebe.
That
Dene semla trugna dene tawa yang lokpa tawa lak.
Can't say.
Pena ngato di tawa drana di ngone mare damba yo mare yana yang nyomong shuk chempo yerpe kapsu dene tawa mepe takrebe.
Tawa maybe tata mara dal tawa tosu tawa de palanyal sonroa.
Oh laso.
Ko ngur chabare tibish tos.
Ne kapsu.
Oh ne kap ko to kure.
Okay, koptu gyoro.
Oh. Munjur the menayang. Tangazu gula luni nyam to unike yo mar karjikana chingundu gurian da ching palanyal gore. Ko to kur gore. Ta sangi sanata lo manda ni nyam to chetamje jijar the king gorwa. In zur kagajirwa.
Chu nyam to
chetamje jijar the king gore.
Chikchar.
Oh, tangazu gula te yo mar. Luchi ngundu gurgelachi tosma palanya dogwar. Tawa teme chabe katreta mare.
So it's not exactly so. So yes, Mark, that's exactly right. It was Denzin. That's what is really at the bottom of our arising negative emotions and upset minds, emotional upset. And Laura, as far as losing the view or like not having it. What we should understand, it's not that you have completely lost the view, but what happens is it actually goes dormant for a little while. We have, in an ordinary being state, we alternate between something being manifestly evident, outwardly manifest, and then something kind of going under, becoming dormant for a little while. And not that it's gone, it's just dormant, and it alternates. So in the case of emotional upset, negative emotions, strong emotional reactions, then the view has become dormant. It's not lost, it's just become dormant. Because unlike the Buddha who can hold, holds like all phenomena and all experience like simultaneously, like everything is integrated. It's not in this alternating fashion. With the Buddha, it's all there, always, all the time. And with us, we alternate to manifest and dormant. And so no worries about losing it.
다 다기디 갈라 용고스로와 마리바다 렘버즈 벤진데다 다음에 또 비셔랍니 미바찔미는 진당 무슨 갈로 차되어와 군이
코니 아니 닥
렘버즈 벤진
덴진
렘버즈 벤진데다 다음에 또 비셔랍니 렘버 마토 렘버 마주바 토베 셔랍니 미바찔미는 진당 무슨 갈레 pena mingpa pumpa zonde kawa zonde jina chige kawa dembar zimbare chige kawa dembar maduban zimbarwa.
Oh, Gonda, let's go tam song. I'm sorry, Gonda. Bumpa
dembar zimbe denzin dedang pumpa deme tope sherabni. Kunyin tape Pumba deme tobe sheraptiki pumba denzin de la nuhudwa.
Oh, de.
Kut mipa chile mine, mipa pumpa le mine, zindang manda ni chabarwa. Chiki dembar zimbare, zindang dembar zimbare, chiki dembar matuban zimbare. Dembar matuban zimbateki, dembar matuban zimbate, lo yang tapa chadi ore. Dembar tuban zimbate lo chinchi lore. Lo chinchi lore den, indi gala, yang tapa lo teki, lo chinchi tola nugudwa.
Oh, lasso.
Oh, that ti indugala, ti nudugala that. Keperduate. No sound dus something what I do hakugarta.
Oh, lasso. So we can think about it like this. There are two notions. And the first notion is the notion of things being true and real. And the second notion is the wisdom that knows that there is no intrinsic selfness, no intrinsic existence in things. So we have the clinging to true and substantial existence on one hand, and the wisdom that knows that things are not true and existent. And at the time, so actually we can cling to both notions or hold to both notions. However, we do so alternately. And at the time when we are strongly holding the notion of something being truly existent and real, then this is overshadowing the wisdom that knows that they're not. Yeah. And at the time, we're holding in our mind the wisdom that knows that there is no true existence in things. It is overshadowing and causing to go dormant the notion that things are true and real. So what happens is one damages the other. One becomes manifest and the other lays dormant. The other becomes manifest and the other lays dormant. This is the way that it works. And this is a really important function to know. So what Geshe-la, he used an example, think I'm just, I don't have an actual like a bumpa or pot. If you think about, this pot as real and existent, then the wisdom that has realized that it is not is overshadowed and lays dormant. And when one is applying the wisdom that has realized the lack of existence, then the notion of true existence is now gone, overshadowed and dormant. And this is a really important process to think about that function and how this is working. Really think about that. It's a very, very important thing to think about how that is functioning in our psychology and our mentality.
그래서 딘진데 시바 친지로 차대로와.
Oh, yeah.
Number 2와 요 말데 number 2와 군진버와.
Yeah.
친지로 차대요래.
Mm-hmm.
pe norgojiri deore.
Mm-hmm.
Demir dembar me badala ripi gethin yore. Kan la gethin tsama yeten jin la nechi gursu sumre.
Kare sumure?
Kan la gethin tsama yo.
Oh.
Gethin tsama yo ina ti gethin tsama tegi jin la ne tugres. Tsama ma imbala. Tsama ma imbata dame to be sherabki denjin la ne yore. 미다바도 베세랍디기 단질는 누구아래 가르나 미다바도 베세랍라 게든 세마여와 미다바 깨지기지긴지 바다바 뉴에 두르와 게든 세마도와 단진들라 게든 세마여 마랑아서 베 로친지 로진 코 택부진 진데르마도 코 난지나 라토 용데가라 딱 작반주 나진 작으러와 자바 코 블루스탄 때네강라 마테강라 코슈 좀 뭐야래 고왕 첨보를 민근 좀 그리 잘라 좀 그리 깜짝 많이 찍으러와 거를래 블루스탄을 랩나 코게 메겐 작을도와 어때서 내지러와
The dogs in Latine.
오 단지네.
And so what we can also further understand, getting into more with this, is that one of these is a perverted view, and one of them is the authentic view. So clinging to true reality of things is perverted view, is a wrong view. It's against the truth of the reality of things. Whereas seeing the lack of intrinsic existence is an authentic understanding of the nature of reality. And so when you are under the sway or absorbed in the understanding and notion of things being not truly existent, then your authentic view is disqualifying the perverted or wrong view, and vice versa. When you're in this view of things as being so solid and real, then this is disqualifying the authentic view of reality. And so this is because when something has been, when we talk about the wisdom that has realized the non-existence or the selflessness, intrinsic selflessness or intrinsic existence, this is a valid cognition that has come out of awareness, So this is why it's called the wisdom that realizes the lack of existence. This is a valid perception. And this valid perception, then can damage the non-valid views or disqualify the non-valid views and break them down. Whereas non-valid views or perverted views, such as, so for example, another valid view is impermanence. When we look to understand impermanence, what we can do is we can look at objects, look at things, and see even materially that things are changing and breaking down second by second by second. Things are in the state of a constant disintegration. This is a valid view.
대다 양지 빼지잖아. 렌치다 렌베치다 준치니. 렌베치데 준치데 중구든 두거라.
Mhm.
그 렌베치데 그 예든 참아요. 렌바레. 줌바다 코페 디 중구든 던두고다. 된다 버렸대.
Mhm.
리라쇼 데레다.
Lasso.
미다바다 송니즈나 카가 차그러와.
Mhm. And so, for example, this understanding of, of things as being, so this valid cognition of things being impermanent and constantly changing automatically damages or does away with the view of things as being permanent and unchanging. But then let's take a perverted view, a wrong view of things as being, having any reality to them, any intrinsic true nature. Based upon those kinds of things, for example, they don't help us understand things in a way, that breaks down another view in a good way. For example, they cause us to cling. They cause us to want, obsess, to steal. We think about a burglar, someone who is just going to, be a robber, and think of all the horrible, terrible things that they will do just to rob and to get what, they want. And this is, again, from clinging to a true substance in things. And another example Geshe-la just added, that we can look at between something being valid and real or not is, like the truth in words. When we speak the truth about something, and when we speak the truth about something, that can really go a long way and be supported no matter what way we try to pick it apart. If it was the truth, the true words, we can try to pick it apart. It's always going to come back as like squaring up, as being okay. But think of all the ways that we can look at lies. And, we keep looking at lies from all different directions and it doesn't hold up, no matter which way you look from it.
Barsangwe.
Oh, Tanda Parsang.
Yeah.
Tanda Parsang.
Karma.
Okay.
Karma 주 견아서 고시제다.
Okay, so maybe we take a 5 or 10 minute break, whatever people need here. Sorry. And so let's start out before we get into anything else. How about any other questions?
I have a question that has more to do with current events than what we're studying right now, if that's okay for Geshe-la.
Tanda tangsang gi di tepdang drawat pena tepdang drawa yomare yanayang tangsang gi dutso gi netso gi korla kandishia chikani yore morangla. Yeah, of course. What actually can be about anything, Geshe-la said. Of course, please ask.
Okay, I was wondering what his guidance is on responding to violence. Like many scientific studies have shown that responding to violence with violence doesn't work, but also being submissive to violence doesn't work either, like it encourages it. So how can we resist violence in a non-violent way without being violent or being submissive?
Ani pena di lap gitu pena duksha gyapya ki lega di dine pena sola duksha ani gyapna dine pala duksha gyapkyu yomare ani pecha kashe ani laki ore yana yang ani me shandaki duksha gyapa dela 강양 아니 마체나 쌈쌈 아니 dene 뉴루 도루 아니 drogiore 쌈쌈 아니 zepa gomya yang 아니 yaksha yomare ngato pena duksha gyapya violence dene zamling la violence de la ngato 아니 kandres chegore kangyang mepa chegore zepa gomgore pentok cheshire kariore kerangi samsola konsola
다 담보 가서래 세메 지와당 엔 다주 르와 다주 전에다 발렌티아 된 가서 발렌요에 이자데 가래다 맞지 이글라 랑친진 슈초보 대당 랑친진다 멤버님의 렌진딩이 발렌기 깽음마다 되지 그거래 발렌요야 미 술내지 발렌치간다 야니 랑친진 슈초보 야니 렌진 유배 멤버님아 티슈 춤보야래 대왕게 젠레 캐스제 투보아래 캐스 투보아래 캐스 젠레 캐스 제즈다 세와데 레서 선택하는게 겐디다 란친진 투보아래 딘디갈라 준주나라 랑이치 랑이치 프린지미 종네 수숭도 알라마 주변나라 종네 레페자고도
가레 숭기도
랑이치 프린지미 종네 랑친진데 종네 레페자고도 배 나자슈 춤보면에 칼레 배 TV 나자선데 캔슬 그 나자서래지라 문진지 거와 어다때 란친진데 간체페 미시바 맞아 윤도 란친진 다 세미 집에 람데 얘네면은 장주 니지 고미야래 니지데 빼 단 니숭으로 낭베 따와 땡중 인스 저바 처음에 봐 인세 숭고로 와 저바 처음에 봐 영어야 돼 자와 니제 두고래 니제 두더라 니제들이 징기 동안을 겸드기로 와 삼로 징기 동안을 겸드 찍은지기 쟤는 저와 영어야 미코랍니다 저와 따가는 동무도
아니 타와 디 첩아 디 세메시기 람 타와 카르라
따와 땡중 땡인중아
라소 데이소보드 아니 게실라 예나야 삼삼 페나
다땡이 닐라 렌자가
라소
어디 겨다 때니 저마 닐라 보양 겨 깽 엄마 쟁인데 서와지 깽 엄마데 아주 그게랑 진진데다 렌진딩이 엄마들다
So first we need to identify where do violent acts come from. We have to investigate where does this violence come from. And when it comes to a Buddhist understanding, we take the stance of non-violent action or non-violent action. Understanding that a violent act comes out of two things. It comes out of a really strong sense of self and self-agenda and wanting to achieve for oneself or protect oneself or dominate others because oneself is the most important. And secondly, out of a strong notion of all, of what is happening as being true and real and solid and just what it is. And so that's why actually in the Guru Puja, there is this verse about, bless me to conquer, like this, this self-clinging, this self-clinging. And so when it comes to, we have view and action, or view and conduct. And when it comes to the view, it is said that we should hold a view of interdependence while while enacting a path, a nonviolent path, a path of nonviolence, living our conduct of a path of nonviolence. When we talk about nonviolence, this means to really what we must do in order to have like a nonviolent reaction or action is that we must have compassion. So that we see that if I were to take a violent stance or violently react to something, we would think about the suffering that we ourselves would cause, that we would impart on another, and thinking about the suffering that they would incur, then great compassion arises in ourselves, and therefore we take the stand of nonviolence. So first we must understand that.
Jiten dewa chinge pa tegun jenden dolin jungs jen jiten dewa kandeji na jen dewan dongenjila ne dewa de kigris jiten dewa chinge pa tegun jenden dolin jungs jen la pento jene ne dewa de tugris jiten dungal chinge pa tegun daden dolin jungs do sungdo dungal kandeji jona ngalanzo dungal valen sembe dungal kare wonder ran 진짜때 두 사람 앉은 두고 와래 나대지더랑 나 기부주나 나 야부주나서 안지저 송동 나슈 첨부 영엔들라 나서다 하고도 진산치 지엠지 선거 단나 법변지 말에 지엠지 진산 선거 때 제가 란진진생인데 다 낭배때 란진진을 끈 누구도네 로 니동 두간 두고 와래 다티 인도가라 란진진 생인데 빼 맞아 투르도 당연지래 때래 빼 미세와 가지고 삼로단에 란진지 슈 충준 당을 뺏게 첨버래.
And as it said in the way of the Bodhisattva, that all suffering in the world without exception comes from focusing on the happiness and purpose of others. I'm sorry, all happiness that there is to have in the world comes from focusing on the purpose of and happiness for others, whereas all suffering there is to be experienced in the world comes for wishing for and accomplishing one's own purpose and one's own happiness. And so really, all of the violent acts that if we were to look closely at them, we would see that they all come from, I want to get this for me or my side or my group or our agenda or our organization, or it's all about me, I, it's so strong. It's just so embedded in this agenda that we have created for ourselves or our organization and so forth. And actually even doctors these days are saying that those, people that have a really strong sense of self, really this, woe is me, and really focus on what's happening to me and I'm going through this. It's very hard to heal those people. They really suffer much more than people for whom, things just roll off their shoulders. And this isn't Tibetan doctors, this is Western doctors, really see a difference between people who really have a strong sense of self and a really strong ego to others who just are very easily kind of let things go and don't have this strong sense of self. And so the Buddhists actually have been saying this for 2,500 years. They've understood that how underscoring and really coming from a place of such a strong sense of self and self-interest and self-agenda really is the cause of our own suffering. So that's why we actually have to take an active stance in destroying, of ridding ourselves of any kind of feeling of self and self-agenda. That's very, very important for us to do, to conquer.
zinzin digni che ta valen yong kabla ta nga zo zoba gomya kande zoba gomna mi ta ti gacha de kobal ta gire ta zoba gomne mi de ngempi kyalan roye yo bat chikche mi mangbo ngam be zoba gomne pendo meje pajola kyalan roye ni mi mangbo la par chikina mi mangbo le kyenge ge na 다 세민딩니 에 니지 삼르당 아니 갑도들라 고 카드자 투에나 카드자 기레 검주기야나 그 가르제는 뜻자고라 세민딩니 내셈장해요 말에 간지 에 제파보단 자완이라 인제 투버지고 가래 자와들라 논렌제 너는 너바제들라 논렌제 엔 제법부터라 니지 게 투바지고 구하래. 된디 중나 빼야버래.
근데 너빠 개그나?
다
너빠케나?
견계구야나. 자와도 제법은이 개발은 제투바지.
라소.
아니 자와들라 동면적으로 다 카드 짜고래. 자와도 그 마루마 미몽불이 견계거로 와. 제법보다 고 닌제 고란 진진다 레머드메 덴진 왕도 손에 다 닌제 율랑을 봐 닌제 율 뭐다 닌제 셈디니 닌제 말버지 제네 이 콜라 카드 짜투버지 고가래 대장주 세비 좁다가라 그래 장주 세에 난거 다가랑
올라서. And so then it's these two things that really cause people in this world to be violent and act out, be it in groups or personally, one-on-one. It comes from two things: strong self-clinging and really seeing things as true and solid, real and fixed. And so how is it then that we forbear when we, how do we view these things and forbear these things when we see them happening? Well, when we see violent acts, if there's a place that we need to place fault, then we place fault to a certain aspect of this. But then also we have compassion for a certain aspect of this. And what we're talking about here is we must divide out, we must segment out the difference between the individual and the action. And the action is violent and it is negative and it is harmful and it is bad. We can see fault in harmful, destructive actions. But to the person, what we understand is that person, that individual that is doing the negative things, they are under the sway and under the influence of a strong ego clinging, self-clinging, self-fulfilling, self-accomplishing agenda, along with, seeing, again, like a true reality, such a solid reality, seeing things as so personal and so true that they're acting like this. And so we have compassion for them. So yes, we place fault in the action, but as Buddhists, we also have compassion for the person who is under the sway of negative emotion and like a false sense of reality. Ani geshe-la, ani chikla, pena samsam ani lega chik che gore, lega chik che guna, pena the torture, the violence, torture cheken, la, ani pena nurture cheken, la, ani lega chik che guna, ani kandras che gore, yamana, ani torture dang, dukcha samala zerpa gomgore, samsam che goya yona.
Tate gacha da kopal tagire. Gacha shu chumbo yena. Tako chik tako mi mongbola kyun gyagena. Ta zopa gomya yomar tako seminding ni niji le mata chene eni dolen chegoya che. Chik timda tu goena police ka tangora karche goena che ya che. 다 소소지보 라제니 밀라 너백기기 메나 아니 고 랍첨부 디지기 메나 이때는 저바 다 소소 경기그래 디켜버려
Lasso. Dene duksha gyapken truchit cheken di mishandak nerpa chena yamena sosola nerpa chena. 수연아양 칙 미칙.
다be 랍첨부 미균 첨부 얘기하나 수수소 두고에나 다 양만이 저기로 와 양만이 그 카드 자야래 소 땅는 디고 말와 조보금 된 디고 말와 소초 주나 다디 가 컵도 그 돈은 제들로 또 시향 타고야래 취럽도 남자 시라고 녀몽 란진지 슈주면은 전 어럽도 남자 시랍데도 돈 두고 말다 샘 균을 투르 지겨 말해 샘 투나 말디고 말해
And so sometimes there's a situation where we need to step in. For example, if we observe that like a violent act is going to hurt many people, then it wouldn't be okay to just forbear that and let it go. But we would need to step in, but we would have compassion for the situation, but then we would step in and then of course obeying the law, be it getting the police, calling and reporting it, working to prevent it, is something that we would indeed step in to do. And if it weren't like someone else weren't to be harmed, like there wasn't a great harm that would come from it, if there's an argument or we get in an argument, for example, with someone, and the person is just using like violent words and so forth, and then there might be a time where we could forbear it. And have compassion and, be the one to walk away and let it go. But when, even if it's a one-on-one situation where one person, for example, is going to kill, commit murder, take the life, then yes, we step in. We step in a way that, we can cause a mitigation or intervention, call the police, get help, call 911, etc. But it's very important that we understand that we must do this from a mind that itself doesn't become like upset. We're not angered. We're not doing this out of our own rage and anger and mental, emotional, like upset, but we're doing it out of compassion and a wish to help. But every situation where we observe or see something that is violent or harmful, we must use our own like intelligence to pick out in that situation what's the best thing to do. Should we forbear it, or should we intervene in a helpful way? So we all have to figure that part out ourselves.
자와다 제법분이라 개발은 제거해야 지갑에는 숨겨래. 우마 지갑에나. 두피 녀몽 자세 그냥 녀몽 땅들 가자 민zer 숨래. 두바상기 좀 된데 녀몽은 달타 그래스. 녀몽데 자와들와. 다 녀몽 일된 가자들라 라지기 마레스. 오다 텔 페카네. 말아서 미 젠다지기 맞어 노바기기나 노바텔라 노바지기 너기기 노바텔라 돈은제 거레스. 너기 겨와포텔라 세민딩니 저we 말로베지 구고레스. 니지기 마당와지. 티페 야보르타. 마 tambo 여름제 자와다 제바분이라 개발은 제거르즈드갈라. 대다 때 용사마르 삼삼지데 디딩아 계스. 맞다 랑진지 슈춤보아와. 이거 삼당근당에 니 전주 지가베치데존 통 전주 삼당 아 대다 뭐네 남주지레서 삼거도와.
시갑게기치 양kerchik.
투페 녀몽 라지강. 녀몽 땅델 가자 민.
And so I'm actually being able to parse out the difference between the violence we see and those that are committing the violence is a very, very important thing to train oneself to do and to be able to do. And it speaks about this in Aryadeva so the master Aryadeva has written the 400 verses on the middle way. And there is a verse there that says, the Lord, Shakyatupa, has said that the enemy is the afflictions. It is the negative emotions that are the real enemy. And so, Geshe-la said that that's, really the truth, because if we look at where this negativity, at this harm is coming from, where is this harm and harm and violence coming from? It's coming out of an afflicted mind state, someone who is a very emotional and afflicted. And this, as Aryadeva has said, is the real enemy. And he referred, to the Buddha himself, that had said the real enemy is the emotions in our mind, our negative emotional states. And so once we parse out these two, then we are able either to forbear or to step in and intervene in a way that places fault on the negative emotion and the harm, while leaving aside and keeping aside compassion for the people or organization that are actually doing it, for they know not what they do. They are they're swayed by these great emotions. And so Geshe-la said the first time he heard His Holiness teach about this, how important it is to you've got to look at two things as two very separate things: the action and the individual taking the action. And you must have compassion for those that are doing the actions while you see fault in the harmful and negative act itself. And Geshe-la at first thought, I'm not so sure that's possible, very hard to do, not so sure I can do that. But, actually, as it, that's because in the beginning, there's a lot of self-clinging, that one would want to be reactive to a situation. One would want to take it personally. He said he found that it was maybe a little difficult, that he might perhaps find it difficult to be able to forbear things, seeing that it's really not the person, it's, and that he shouldn't take it personally. But that is something that we, then learn as we go on and mature on the path.
랑진진들이 자와다 제법은이 찌뚜 툴찌 낭제니 빈진용데 갈라코 인제 땅 투입니다.
가래 땅 투기면도
인제 자와다 제법은이래 개버인제 투입니다.
야.
인제 땅 마투제 아니 찌뚜 통고라. 찌뚜 통데니 나한테 정인데 자와 정인데 코레즈데 제법들은 주고 가라. Tado so samlo pe kuyamuchi de samtangina jawa de chepapo pe khagare kyonde nyomong bichare nyomong ko nyomong thura nga jen chigiro ate tenaji ranjinjin thu je nyomong kena takana jin chikpa chikyan chigire ganda page Washington DC mi tu chigido kena ranjinjin yori na nga jen chigire te juju san rubunda 랑진진들다. 자와다 제법을 개발은 제투나 펜도 첨부용도. 말한 좀 이제 눈을 쉬고 펜도 용사래대.
This actually, if we are able to parse these two out, it will serve us very, very well in our lives. But actually, what we usually, are very habituated to doing when we see or encounter a harm doer, there's the harm doer and the action itself, but we see it as one. We see it as one thing. We approach it as one thing, and that we are going to respond and react to one thing. Very difficult for us to divide these two, the actor and the action. And what we end up doing is we end up pointing our fingers or pointing our fault at one thing when there are actually two things to be seen there. The individual and the action, the actor and the act itself. And what we have to see is the negative emotions make us sick. They take us over so that we're possessed, so that we're like driven by a sickness. I mean, we look at the actions that we saw recently in Washington, D.C., these people that are storming and rioting and pushing through and breaking through as if driven, possessed. And they, that's what the negative emotions do. They take us over, they possess us, they drive us like we're stricken with this great sickness, and we act out of that. And this great sickness is strong self-clinging. I am going to forge on and I am going to get this done. And it really takes us over. So if we can learn to see that there are really two things going on here. There is an individual, but this individual is really stricken by a sickness of emotions. And emotions cause us to act in like very, very perverted ways. If we can remember this, to sort these two out, this will really serve us very well in our lives.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
did that answer your
That
question?
answered my question. Yes, thank you.
No problem. 당문에 와서 란친진라 카페 자고 미시버게 첨버다. 란친진의 렌징이 슈 전부 옆에 갑라. 마음바나 수소 리부대와 용해랑 게 지그래. 최로도 남자기 싫었던 둥 말에. 딘디 시우다가 견제 그래. 류라 견제 그래. 내 나자기 둥 그래. 다 걸어 lumpa kanse선 주고 미치 주도 차상 중간에 내서 인가 여러와 어다 텐데 인도가 빼 잡잡적으로 대소 장들 니지기 율 그래 니지 미바 장지 대소 아니 빼 삼당 왔다 빼게 첨버래 한진생이 견빼 첨버지가 없다 인도가 그냥 something 류나라 한진생라 견 망고 숨도 어다 땡아서 야지 좀 보시와라기 가난교대 수수 가서 툭툭 랑진진당 뎀버즈미 렌징이라 가서 툭툭지 슈중구 땅과데 빼 말한서 수수에 다 가르쳐오래 뭐 리부 첨보지 구거나 사기 사 두구거나 다 땡이 마도나 사기 사 레비아 코란 요 말에 시망문토 야보지고나 땡이 너무 그래 내래 에네페 문토 라다미 고방 술팀 송데 땡이 넘네 술팀 야보지 송 에네 라다미 고방 덥도 그래 아니 내래 토바이나 에네 란친진다 데머즈미 덴진 마돔나 송이 토벨 타와키 그 말에 란친진 마돔나 장주기 셈규레케 요 말에 제사 땡이 메나 내래 타바 양니 탐제 겸바 토야 고나요 말다 와다텐디 인드가라 땡이 란친진데기 장주기 셈키알랑 게지기 오래 렘버진비 덴진데기 따기 코니셰네 똥버 다 우마 튕규엘 타와 라지메벨 타와 키와라 게지기 오래 진디 네치 뭐 잡아래
So it's not really the individual that does all this. It's really the negative emotions inside the mind that really does this, all of this violence. And so if we really have a mindset that is very strongly set in self-agenda, if we're driven by ideas of ourselves to accomplish for ourselves, we're going to act in ways that actually are very negative. And in the end, what they bring back to us is difficulty, suffering, pain, suffering, sorrow, our own, that we will have to experience. And because we're holding that kind of a mindset, we won't be able to have any discerning wisdom. Our wisdom will be covered. And there are really actually this is for us or anyone who acts, in this way. There's so many faults when it comes to letting our emotions take us over. Think about all of the negative things we can do that bring about our own, mental unhappiness, physical unhappiness, all kinds of trouble. They can even get someone, drive someone to do things that will make them go to prison. And so when we see these violent acts that are going on in the world by individuals or groups, they are truly should be an object of our compassion, not of our own responsive rage, but of a reaction, but of compassion. They are a true object of compassion. They are bringing about ruin on themselves in so many ways. And that's why it's so important that like a strong sense of a self, of oneself as an individual, and protecting oneself and accomplishing and getting for oneself. We should really see it. I mean, it's so bad, really. And this is a very important point. It is such a really, really negative thing. And you can read more about this in the chapter in the Way of the Bodhisattva on meditative concentration. I believe that's chapter 8. You could really read a lot about the faults and ways to work around and to counter a strong sense of this self-clinging, self-cherishing attitude. And Master Shantideva has really elucidated this and expounded on it greatly in this chapter. And so really these are great enemies, this self-cherishing attitude, self-clinging and self-cherishing attitude, along with our view of reality, of being true and substantial and real. It is really, these two things that, if we are going to be involved in those kinds of things and accomplishing things for ourselves from this kind of an attitude, well, we can have the level of a self-cherishing, materialistic, clinging to reality person to that level, or we can have a level of enlightenment of the Buddhas. But if we're going to have the side of seeing things as fixed and real and personal, then we can have Buddhahood. It's one or the other. And so if we want to have accomplishments, such as accomplishing the state of a god, or even the higher realms of gods or humans, a fortunate rebirth, then we can accomplish that by having moral and ethical behavior. In the future, we will accomplish, not a self-clinging, fixed to reality level, but we'll be on our way to real accomplishment, to the higher levels, gods and humans in the future. We can't do that if we don't get our own attitude in check and really look to tamp down and rid ourselves of coming from acting in this world through self-purpose. When we have a sense of self and wanting to accomplish our own self-purpose, what we will have is we will have more afflictive emotions. We'll be driven to accomplish that by afflictive mental states that we won't keep in check. And because the negative emotions aren't in check, there'll be no way for us to have bodhicitta, to feel the altruistic attitude, to care about all living beings. And never mind even thinking about accomplishing the state of liberation or omniscient state of enlightenment or Buddhahood. We will not be able to do that if we continue to have self-cherishing and a fixed attitude of reality. And so it's because these two things act as obstructors. They are hindrances to bodhicitta. They are hindrances even to our realizing the view of Madhyamaka. And so they're very, very big hindrances. They hinder our path, and our accomplishments along the path, altruism, and even developing the view.
Yeah, that. Mother chica, mother karma, shipchulin zindogwata.
Sola, sola. Yeah, Geshe-la is saying it's already getting, we're about 20 to 6 now. We have any other questions? Anyone else want to have a question or have something to add here?
I have a further question kind of along this line, and that is, there's the individual and there's the action, but then as a Buddhist, should we be advocating for consequences for those who commit violent acts? More out of a concern for the well-being. I mean, for me, it's out of concern for the well-being of other people, other beings.
Do you mean like a jail or go to like arrested and those kinds of things?
Yeah, or that there be things that are done or that we advocate for that prevent these things. Of course, you can't prevent anything. I understand that, absolutely. But that they go toward helping to prevent or discourage those kinds of actions. And then, and I don't know, and then further, I guess one thing that I've really wrestled with is how do we, out of our understanding that people that commit violence are suffering, and we have compassion for it, how do we hold them? You know, how do we hold them and help them overcome that suffering? Is kind of what I've wrestled with. I've really wrestled with, you know, I mean, I'll just call out the elephant in the room. Since the election, really purposely engaging with people who have different political views than I have, and to really listen to what they have to say and not feel like I have to refute it, but to really try to understand their point of view. And so that's kind of what I'm talking about when I'm saying holding them. So there's holding them accountable, but there's also holding them.
That's kalikapoyore. Ani dene che papo dang chawa ani ni yepa ani hako song ani ngone chena di che papo la ninji gomgore te konso la yang ani drebu nyongore konso gi dukcha chena drebu nyongore di chikche pena ani drebu manyongna konso maompala pena ani yaga ani yaru palcher drogi yomare chetsang konso di natso konso la ninje gomgore te konso la yang ani dukcha gi laga ani de chene drebu nyongore di chikche ani nikadire palcher konso gi dukcha gi laga di mungok chetap kari kari yore konso la pena lega duksha mache ngonla mungok chetap kari kari yore di nika Dene sumpa di ngone kalchampore tengsangi dutsodang dralwa pena sidungi tawa kashe yore pena ani pena kashe di aregi zimpa chinzin la ani konsola ani muten yore muten mepagi mi yang yore ani pena ngaso mi shand pena sidungi tawa dang muten chege mana dene samlo kondras kegore di nangshin reke shila kondak poke la yapo ne shumatubna kondak muten meki mi pena di Trump supporter chikla keche chea kinyamdu nga kongla ani makyang na ani muten mana ani nga ani kandras ani samlo kandras kirgore samgore
가르쳐 버렸다. 당보대 가르라서
di tangpo di drebo konso di
누구 용 거라서.
drebo nyongore
누구 용에랑 가서 봐. 거저 너는 너 빚게 가다 요 말와. 거저 랭감 받자이나 누구랑진 그거 중얼 가서 맞잖아 용구래. 대다 선배고 말해. लेकिन नंबर में बा चुमी लेकिन नंबर में बा समझ के जे सुरे ते पे दिबु ले दे छारे ले जंगन करचना जंगन दे छार छार 이 자와 दे छार छार दिबु तो टुया को न्योंग करे इंजि मिंजि ngazo 파테나 ngazo 지금 दिबु न्योंग करजने 파 너베 के가 제이나 수양 수술은 दिबु 용구로 와 데데티 바 저셈 곰데 에 펜심 펜바타 저셈 곰 데나 티야가 호런 디부다 코 란싱 용구로 와다 에 시든데 가르포지다 나포지 니요레 시든 가르포이나 장주스베 쩌바 젤레 펜다야 디 디토는 발리니오야 코란요 마레 다 란친진 슈 정보다 렌진 슈 정보 영에 간살라 다 데네 그 폴리티컬리 자와 간디시잖아 낙보레 가디 미충아레 어다 되게 때라 뺨미시와 에 삼삼 조가데 윤둥아서 연에 되고데 빼게 치쇼레 시든바 낙포지던 년도 두고 주네 빼 갈래어다
Re morangi triwa mangcha pelcha di regeshla pena keche chesa nye keche chesa DC gi lega cheken dukchagi lega che yapore ngone yapore dile duga chena yagare ani keche chedu pena nga dinangjen mi dinangjen keche chedu nga semla kandres samgore
디 디로와데 또 시든 받을라 야도 니여레 시든 받 야가 시든 염돈로나 이제는 펜타간에 전주스비 쪽바데 찌뿌찌냥여레 데토는 발리니오야 코나요 말에
디서보도
다 시든 받 낙보지든 염도 에 시든 받 낙보시디가라 칸이 닉니지 삼다 칸이 점바지 삼다 점바 시행에 제 내가 점바 쟁에 다 딘데길라 수수 윤두 지조 맞제제 윤두 타링진데 과데 게치쇼레
lasso yana nge dropo di lasso keshla yana yang ani chungna pena nge dropo ki ngala like a duksho di peya pore yang kerchena ani peya pore de rang
드디다 수수
na samlo ani kandra sam gore
드디다 수수간에 다 거기 데 누구 통계나 콜라 야들라 아니 에 야즈 맞제제 갈갈레다 가르쳐거래
And nge samla o ningje. Ani lap namatok. Ani nge samla o ningje.
ninja tate mari ranchinzin one rugu the tada kanta samsamji khorgora. Ani susu tatigi di gangla susu ro mitubiyagi tapshi chegore. Semna ninja le mitana de peke chemore.
And so, first of all, as far as, those that commit negative acts, needing to, as far as any consequence goes, you need not worry, because the action will naturally bring about a consequence. And don't worry, it will mature. That karma or that action will bring about consequence. That's the one sure thing about actions. Actions have results, good or bad. So it will come back to them. Be it a good action, a result will come about, a consequence will come about, or a bad action. They will necessarily need to experience a consequence for that. It will
le majiban mite cheba chumiza sumsumre le majigenjida teyo maris le cheba chetsar ti chuizayo mar lekin dibu injimiji mingere labre.
So when we speak about the workings of karma or the nature of karmic action, it is said that one will not meet with the result of a karma that one has not committed, and that once committed, a karmic result will not go to waste. It will not just go away. One will experience the result. So one can be sure about that. And so when you do, though, hear that someone has like a negative, in terms of someone who might have a different view than you do, and wishing maybe that more harm were to come for someone. So what you should really think about when you're with someone like that is, first of all, you should be patient. And second of all, you should hold a wish to benefit that person. That's what you can do from your side. Hold patience for them and hold within your heart a wish to benefit them. And we should understand that when it comes to people who are political, people that have political agendas, there are those that have positive, kind of are morally positive or negative. They either want to, accomplish things, good and in a good way, or negative, and whatever means suit the ends. They will just go from that standpoint. We just have to understand that political people can be divided in these two ways. And the more self-clinging and the more really fixing to things as true and real and holding so much personal anger over things really drives people to be more on that negative side. And so we must always be really, really careful, actually, when when we're dealing with people and talking politics. And it's better that if we know that someone holds is one of these more negative political agenda people, it's better for us, if we can, to keep our distance from them and not meet up with them and not keep company with them. But as to what you can hold in your heart and how you hold space at this time when you are, let's say, talking with someone who says, oh, maybe they are approving of something violent and saying, oh, I wish they even did more violence than that. And they're really taking this negative stance. Then what do we say or do then or think? What we can think is, oh, really, they are clouded by a great ignorance. And that happens to people at, either periodically, or some people are stuck in a very, very ignorant, dark mindset. And to not get into it with them and not get upset yourself, but to be very compassionate and see that some people are just overcome by ignorance.
미리지 않대 수수디 제가 political 게 때제도 semla 티키네네 sem티제 되기도 준지기야 말 sem티제나 대왕게 수수수부 에 누분 리숭냠도 그래 리숭은 냠나 수술네 나사게 둥그리 디경래 텔레 파 펜바다 아닝제 섬네 니지곰 그제단들 니지곰메나 수시스템 기바 대왕게 수수 셈 기부 중에 리된 기부용 그래. 단대 뒤설라 셈데 유니치기 엄마다 단대 뒤설라 까츠 툭툭 셈라 뽑아 깨고야 돼 미시브게 쳔버리.
It's very, very easy for us to get worked up when it comes to some of these really crucial and political things that are happening in community and in the world. When we're talking about these political things, very, very easy for us to get worked up so much that, we feel it to our bones. Very, very easy for that to happen. And so what's also important when you are with someone who is holding a negative, harmful view, political stance, that it's very important that you don't let it get to you like that, that you relax your body, relax your mind, and feel compassion. Because if you do let it kind of seep in to your pores and, into your body, then you will feel the effects of that. You will feel the energy of that. And that can cause one to be sick, actually. It can really make you really sick if you take that on. So it's very important that you intentionally relax and open to compassion. Because at the moment you open, like you melt into compassion, instead of restricting and saying, oh my God, I can't believe they're saying, relax and open and have love, then you feel happy. You feel relaxed, you feel good yourself, and this will really benefit you physically and of course emotionally, very happy. So this is a very, very important time, with what we have going on in our world right now, that we take proactive steps to stay upbeat and to stay relaxed. Very, very important that we don't get caught up in a way that it really takes us over.
Yeah.
So I was in a retreat, a 3-day silent retreat over the New Year, and the teacher said a thing that was I felt was very important, and that was there's the struggle of craving or affliction, whatever you want to call it, but the awareness of the craving does not struggle. And so I wonder if Geshe-la might speak a little bit to that kind of awareness. I heard him mention it earlier when he was talking about valid cognition. And I thought that was just so wise.
아니 모랑
next week, that's fine. Because I know we're running out.
Pelcher 아니 dene ducho mana dene sanima jema yang ani trina ani keyo marela yamena tanda yamena sanima jema.
대대 개발하면 나다 개발하면 주술 쭉 빠진섬 계속 비문하게입니다 건소.
Geshe-la says that he is really totally willing. He wonders though if people are sore from sitting for too long. That's his only concern. He has no problem whatsoever continuing. How is everyone else feeling? I'm on single view, so I can't see who's here, but
Bimunana, Jamayan, Dengi Mando Chikirta.
Yes, so Geshe-la says maybe because we're almost 6 o'clock and people probably want to stretch. Can it be what we go into the first time next week when we get into it next week? Would that be okay with you, Gaynell?
Oh, certainly. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah. That's just Wanda.
Yeah, so almost 6 o'clock. Geshe-la apologizes for the lateness.
Da, Kanji, Gawa Zojang with the Pemisiba Chambore. And a monam Moachi to Gala, Tananga di choosing in Sumjin Devade, Tasun de Gomare, Maranzu Yuki, Nyomon de la Kapijagi Tonta, and then Tony Kashi Gorva. That the best Sonam Chambore, Janjuki sent Tony to Bekaja Kambushia, the Sonam Chamberta. That is Gawadi. Tendin Sayar, Gava the Zojan Monanda, and it pay chip. Kajaki Simjan Monanda, it watch at the package.
So now we come to the point within our closing prayers where we dedicate the roots of our virtue. And the roots of our virtue of this activity are that we weren't just for 2.5, almost 3 hours, just sitting around kind of shooting the breeze, talking about whatever came up, but that the focus of the teaching was about and gave means to how it is that we realize the afflictive emotions and how do we get them under control. So we spoke about eliminating the negative emotions, and we spoke about emptiness, the lack of intrinsic natural existence. And this is very, very meritorious to spend time talking, asking questions, answering questions that included topics of bodhicitta, the altruistic attitude for the wish of well-being of others, and emptiness, meaning the lack of a reality, the way that it first appears, this emptiness of it being that incredible virtue when we talk about those two categories. And it is a sure and a solid virtue. And so now in the end, we take all of that virtue that we have amassed in this time, and we dedicate it to the good and the purpose of all limitless sentient beings.
Chanjo Samcho, Rimboche, Maki Pona, Kingiruchi, Kawa Nyamba, Kone Kondo Pewara Show, Kaji Rawe, Kurwe Jinkanda, Pendan the Wama Linjung, Jerezi on Tenzin Yatsui, Shape, Site, Paso, Tenguruchi, Jamba Pawe, Chiltraki, Kundo Zampo, Tean Tejinte, Teta, Kungi, Jeso, Dalo, Chirikewan, Teta, Raptungo, Tusum Shipi, Yawa, Tamchiki, Makanla, Chotonga, Tajenge, Tawan, Dekunja, Zampo, Chuchi, Rapto, Waraki.
Bodhicitta, the excellent and precious mind, where it is unborn, may it arise. Where it is born, may it not decline, but ever increase higher and higher. In the land encircled by snow-white mountains, the source of all happiness and benefit flows in your person, Chenrezig Tenzin Gyatso. Remain until samsara ends. Just as the Bodhisattva Manjushri attained omniscience, and Samantabhadra too, so now I dedicate these merits to train and follow in their footsteps. As all the victorious Buddhas of the past, present, and future praise dedication as supreme, so now I too dedicate these sources of my merit for all beings to perfect good actions.
Thank you, Geshe-la.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Diane.
Welcome. Bye. See everyone next week. Have a good week.
Thanks to all of